Chess YouTube, as you all know, Magnus Carlsen, the GOAT, is the greatest endgame player of all time, no questions asked. But how good is he at the endgame really? And how does he always seem to win in the endgame, no matter what happens? To answer those two questions, we're looking at a game played between Arjun Erigaisi and Magnus Carlsen in this month's Title Tuesday tournament. And the endgame in this game, I mean by both players, but especially Magnus, was just off the charts. This game will show you how to play the endgame like Magnus. Let's dive right in. In the game, Arjun playing as white opens 1e4 and Magnus 1c5. Then we have knight f3, d6, and here white has many options. You can go for, say, the open Sicilian, say 3d4, or the Moscow 3 bishop b5 check, but instead Arjun plays a very trendy idea, one that Magnus himself has played quite a bit as white. That is the move bishop c4, the Italian style move, and the idea is simple. From here, white's going to go d3 and c3, castles, a4, all typical Italian opening moves, and it is a very flexible way to play as white from here. All right, Magnus, knight f6, pressuring e4, white d3, and then knight c6. From here, white castles, black goes e6, white rook e1, black bishop e7. We have a4, castles, c3, and in this position, both sides have played kind of all the obvious moves. And here, black can play slow with, say, I don't know, a6 or h6 or rook e8 and so on, but instead he does attack back in the center immediately with the very strong idea of simply d5. Everything so far has led up to this exact move by Magnus here in the opening. Arjun now, he retreats, bishop b3. And in this position, Arjun is threatening the move e5. If, for example, black wastes the move, if black goes, for example, I don't know, bishop d7 or b6 here, white will go e5, gaining space, pushing back this knight, then go d4. And from here, white's going to have a very solid edge out of the opening, a good advanced French defense pawn structure, and black will be under a lot of pressure. Now, instead of that, Magnus here, being the endgame player that he is, he goes for an endgame. He takes on e4, white takes back, and now black here, Magnus, he trades on d1, and white trades back with the bishop. Bishop takes d1, maintaining defense of the pawn on e4. Now, both sides have a roughly even endgame. So what are the plans for both sides right here? Well, first of all, both sides have not finished development. In chess, I use this rule called attack or develop. In chess, generally, the best moves generally involve attacking the opponent or developing, bringing out more pieces and so on. And both sides here have a lot of pieces still on the back ranks, the bishops, the knights, and so on. So the first priority here for both sides is going to be finding a way to bring out every single piece to good squares. And from there, they're going to have to find some way to pressure the opponent, pressure weak pawns, pressure pieces, and so on, to apply pressure and force out mistakes from the opponent. Let's see what happens. Black here, rook d8, developing a solid idea. Arjun Erigaisi, bishop c2, defending e4 with the bishop. Now from there, Magnus, b6, the idea being, first of all, defending c5, second of all, freeing up b7 and a6 for the bishop. Both squares would be decent for that piece. Arjun, knight a3, a good move, finding a good square for that knight, and from there, it does eye the very weak c4 and b5 squares. Black here, h6, we have bishop f4, a good move, finding a good square for the bishop, and black here plays the move g5. Now, this is a good time to slow down and talk strategy. In the endgame, moves like g5 can actually be pretty safe. The point being, the king is not that weak on g8, even with the pawn on g5. Now, in the middle game, going g5 is super risky because the king can easily be attacked by the queen and so on. But in the endgame, moves like this, gaining space on the king side, are very common. It's a very typical way top super GMs play chess nowadays. So white here is a choice. Where do you put this bishop? Arjun, I mean, he could go back to, say, e3 or g3, or even d2 or c1 for even. Instead, Arjun plays the move here, bishop to c7, attacking the rook on d8. From here, Magnus, rook d7, and then Arjun, he slides back, bishop g3. So what was the idea behind bishop c7? The truth is, well, first of all, there's the obvious idea. You're trying to force the rook to potentially a weaker square on d7, but to be honest, it's not exactly that much weaker, but there's a bigger idea behind this move. Both players in this game, they are trying to find every single possible way to apply even just a little bit more pressure on the opponent and force out more mistakes. So Arjun here, he could go back to g3 right away. That's a very viable idea, but instead, he just finds a way to apply a little bit of pressure to Magnus, force out, I mean, a move maybe he's not trying to make, and from there, he just slides back. So bishop c7, rook d7, and then bishop to g3. And that will be a recurring theme throughout this endgame from both players. Both players trying to find any possible way to apply more pressure to the opponent. From here, Magnus, knight to h5. What did we just say about applying pressure to the opponent? Magnus here threatening the bishop, threatening to win the bishop pair. Now, if black can trade his knight for the bishop, that would be a massive, massive victory. In the endgame, those two Bs are so valuable, especially with pawns on both sides of the board in an endgame like this. And Magnus being, I mean, this guy is a monster with those two Bs. So Arjun, he's got to find some way to keep the bishop on the board, at least for right now. And he does that with the move here, knight to e5, a very precise idea. So white here, he sees the threat, he sees the bishop being under attack, and he knows there is no easy way to keep it alive. Every single square here being covered by the black pieces. Therefore, instead, he jumps in, well, if I can draw arrows correctly, instead he jumps in with that knight to e5, the point being he has the attack on the rook. The rook here has to move, but if you go back to, say, d8, you lose the knight on c6. Therefore, black here trades on e5, and white trades back, and now the bishop temporarily does find a way to live. Now, black here, yes, has the option of going f6, but that would be a slight weakening move, and black isn't really in a rush to play that kind of idea. So, black here instead plays the move bishop b7, attacking e4. Now, real fast, yes, you can go f6. Yes, it is playable. And you may think, all right, surely black is simply going to win the bishop here, right? Well, it turns out that is not the case. White here, I mean, he can go back to, say, g3, but white can also go for the intermediate idea of g4, pushing back the knight, and then bishop g3. So things are not as simple as they seem. So instead, black here simply goes bishop b7, developing and pressuring the pawn on the e4 square. All right, from here, Arjun, he plays a very strong idea, and again, very much keeping in line with the theme of this game. He plays the move a5. So what is the threat? Well, white here threatens to capture on b6, taking on b6, and then maybe, for example, knight to c4, pressuring b6 with that knight. And in general, white is following the idea of, in the endgame, both players here are finding every possible way to apply even a little bit more pressure on the opponent and force the opponent to at least think about the various threats that they have in this game. So both sides so far finding every possible way to apply even the slightest amount of pressure on the opponent. It is just so instructive how they do this in this game. From here, Magnus, bishop c6, we trade on b6, a takes, and then knight c4, jumping in, as discussed, pressuring b6. From here, Magnus, he trades on a1, we have rook takes, and now what is black going to do about the weak pawn on b6? Do you retreat and defend, we say the rook or the bishop, or do you advance the pawn to b4, pushing back that knight? In the game, Magnus here, he does advance the pawn. We have b4, pushing back that knight, and now knight to a5, pressuring the bishop. We have bishop a8, finding a pretty passive square for that piece, and here, knight to b3, retreating, attacking c5, and attacking the bishop on a8. So again, Arjun finding every possible way to attack every piece that he can all throughout this endgame. It is so instructive. Black here, bishop b7, and now Arjun, what does he do right here? Well, once again, he finds the best way to apply even more pressure on the opponent. He plays the move here, rook to a7, a very strong idea, pressuring the bishop. It's now pinned to that rook on d7. If you say, I don't know, take on e4, the rook does fall on the d7 square. From here, black, f6, pushing back the bishop, and then we have bishop b8 sliding back to the back rank. From here, Magnus, c4, gaining space, knight to a5, and then bishop c8, getting out of the way of the attack of that knight. Again, Arjun finding every possible way to attack Magnus over and over and over and over in this game. Magnus here sees the threat, bishop c8 is the move, and now Arjun plays the move g3, which gains some space, threatens ideas like f4 and h4, and very importantly, takes away f4 as a good square for that knight on the h5 square. From here, black, bishop c5, attacks the rook, Arjun, rook c7, and then we have the rook trade, rook takes and bishop takes. So now we have an endgame with two Bs and the knights for both sides and a bunch of pawns. And overall, the endgame is rather even, and the winner of this endgame is going to be the player who can simply apply more pressure to the opponents for longer without making mistakes. So let's see what happens in this game. Black here, knight g7, finding a better square for that knight. Now we have b3. opening up the queen side, and black knight to e8, retreating and pressuring the bishop. He may be intending, for example, knight d6, trying to find a better square for that piece. From here, bishop d8 is the move, pressuring f6. Again, Arjun finding every possible way to apply as much pressure as humanly possible on the opponent. From here, black trades on b3. We have c takes, then knight takes, and here Magnus makes maybe the first inaccurate move of the entire endgame. He plays the move here, bishop to a3. Now, this move is a little bit weak as the bishop is simply not very centralized here on the a3 square. Instead, the computer likes the idea, for some reason, of bishop f8, and this is the benefit of applying pressure on the opponent. When you apply pressure like this, the opponent might make a mistake like bishop a3 without even realizing it. From here, Arjun plays the very strong move, knight d4, jumping in, pressuring two very weak pawns on b5 and e6. Again, Arjun finding every possible chance, I'm saying it over and over, but it's true, every possible chance to attack as many weak points in the position for the opponent, now being the pawns on e6 and b5. Magnus here, how does he defend? Well, he plays bishop d7, but this turns out to be another slight weakening move. Here, Arjun, bishop d3, targets b5, and what can black do to defend? I mean, maybe knight d6, but then you lose the pawn on f6. Magnus here cannot defend these pawns, and Arjun is going to win a pawn and have a big lead in this endgame, all thanks to his relentless pressure so far in the endgame. Black, knight d6 comes, defending b5, but Arjun, he trades on f6. Bishop takes f6, winning the pawn and ruining black's kingside pawn structure. Magnus has the 1-2 pawn islands versus the 1-2-3 of black, meaning white has the extra pawn plus the better pawn structure. A fantastic lead. All right, Magnus, bishop b2, doing the same thing, applying relentless pressure to the weak points in the white camp, that now being the pawn on c3. Arjun, knight c2, retreats and defends the pawn with the bishop. Magnus here, king to f7, attacking the bishop, and white does go bishop d4, retreating. Now, knight c4, jumping in with that knight. We have bishop takes, b takes, and now Magnus here, despite being down a pawn, he does have those two b's on b2 and d7, and those b's are so valuable because they can cover every possible square. For example, if the piece goes back to, say, I don't know, e7 or d6, black would have like every possible line of attack covered with these Bs, and that would be, if I could draw arrows right, that would be very, very strong indeed. All right, from here, knight e3, attacking c4. Again, relentless attacks. Black, bishop b5, defending, and now knight g4, again attacking more and more pawns in this game. Black h5, defending and pressuring g4, and the knight does go to e5. Knight to e5 check is the move. We have king to e7, f3, bishop a3, and then king to f2. The king march begins in this game. Bishop d6, pressuring e5, king to e3, and then bishop to c7. Now Arjun plays the move here, h4. Is this the best move according to the engine? Perhaps not. But again, Arjun just trying to find relentless ways to pressure black, threatening taking on g5. Again, just relentless psychological pressure in this game. Black here trades on h4. We have g takes, and then king to e8, sliding back, and Magnus right here is sort of defending. There's not much he can do. White here has the edge. He has the one extra pawn, and black's only idea here is simply wait and defend and wait for the right time to counterattack. So we have knight g6, king to f7, knight e5 check, king e8, king f4, bishop d8, knight g6, king f7, knight e5, and king to g8. So far, not much happening, but things will get very spicy very soon. We have king g3, bishop c7, and now Arjun finally goes f4, the big committal move. Black, king to f8, knight f3, bishop d7, bishop e5, and in this position, Arjun has a lot of pressure. He's threatening f5, he's threatening various ideas here, knight g5 and so on, and Magnus here begins to crack a little bit under the pressure. He plays the move bishop to a5, pressuring c3, again following the idea of relentless pressure, but it turns out this was not the right pawn to attack. Instead, bishop d8, pressuring h4 was the better idea. Instead, bishop a5 played in the game, king to f2, and then king d7. Now king e3, bishop b6 check, bishop d4 blocks the attack on the king, and then bishop c7, maintaining those two Bs in this game. If you take on, say, d4, that is simply winning for white. So instead, bishop c7 played in the game. Now, Bishop c5 hits the king, king to f7, knight g5, attacks the king, attacks e6, and the king does move king to g6. Now, bishop d4, bishop a5, pressuring c3 once again, king d2, bishop c6, king e3, and bishop d7. Now, we fast forward a little bit. Let's go right to this position right here. In this position, Arjun, he is getting tired of waiting around. Magnus here playing so precisely so far in this game. Here he plays the move knight to g5, but this is a massive overextension. Arjun giving up the pawn on f4 for kind of no reason. Magnus here, he trades on f4, and now it's an all-out dogfight in this game, both sides having winning chances. All right, bishop e7, sliding up with the bishop, e5, gaining space, knight f3, bishop g4, king to f2, and then bishop to c8. Now, once again, both sides begin sharking around, both sides trying to find things to attack, and nothing much happens until right here. In this position, white plays the move bishop to a5, defending c3, but in doing so, he allows black to trade on g5 under good circumstances. He trades on g5. We have bishop takes g5, a very committal move. White here can trade on g5 right away, but first, instead, he inserts the check. Bishop b4 check hits the king. The king moves, king e6, and then h takes, and bishop takes e4. Magnus here, thanks to his just relentless tenacity in this game, he finds himself up a pawn in the endgame with two passed pawns on e5 and h5. Let's see what he does from here, and the theme of this endgame from here will be the principle of two weaknesses. More on that in just a little bit. And keep in mind, both sides have 10 versus 19 seconds to make literally all of their moves. This is extreme time pressure right here. All right, king g3, the king march, bishop g6 defends h5, bishop c5, king to f5, and here a big blunder by Arjun. He plays the move bishop to e3, and this move is a massive problem. Magnus here, king to e4, attacks the bishop, king f2 defends, and now king d3 attacking the pawn on c3, and that pawn is going to fall. Bishop b6, king takes c3, and here Magnus has many passed pawns on c4, e5, h5, and the theme from here is the principle of two weaknesses. In the endgame, you typically need to have two weak points or two assets to attack the opponent with. In this case, for example, pawns on h5 and c4 could be those two assets that he needs to distract white and win the game. We have king to e3, e4, gaining space, the pawn being supported by the bishop. From here, bishop c7, king b3, bishop e5, c3, bishop f6, and then c2 is the move. From here, king d2, e3 check hits the king. If you take the free pawn, c1 promotes to a queen, and black wins the game on the spot like this. Instead, king c1 played, and then e2. Now, bishop c3, and in this position, Magnus here, he plays e1, promoting to a queen. Maybe a misclick, I'm not sure. White here trades on e1, bishop takes, and then king to c4 is the move. Now here, black, all he has to do is march his king over, win the pawn on g4, push this pawn down the board, escorted by the king, and the two pawns will be too much for white to handle. And by the way, guys, real fast, if you're trying to improve at online chess and you are stuck, I have a new program, DR Mike Chess Pro, my new coaching program, where we literally guarantee you will gain 200 plus ELO in 90 days or less. If you like the sound of that, if you want to gain 200 plus ELO in 90 days or less, head to drmikechess.com. Links above and down below in the pinned comment and the description. And yes, we do have a Black Friday sale going on right now. Join while you can. All right, from here, bishop h4 defends the pawn, king d4, bishop g3, king e3, bishop h4, king f3, bishop e1, and then king to g4, bishop f2, h4, bishop e1, h3. Again, black, all he has to do is escort the pawn down the board, win the bishop, and then win the game. Bishop g3, king takes, and from here, again, black just escorts the pawn down the board, and there is nothing that white can do to slow down Magnus in this game. And despite being in extreme time pressure, having 5 seconds left to finish the game, Magnus Carlsen, he finds a way to finish Arjun off and checkmate the white king. Wow, what a game and what an end game. Starting from move 11 here, played between Magnus Carlsen and Arjun Erigaisi in this Titled Tuesday Blitz game, and it really shows the importance in the end game of a relentless pressure, relentless tenacity, just hanging in there, applying pressure to the opponent nonstop in the entire game, and when you get an edge, trying to find those two weak points, those two assets, the principle of two weaknesses. For example, Magnus here in, say, this position right maybe here with those two passed pawns. I mean, one passed pawn could be defended, but two is simply too much. So an absolute masterclass by Arjun and Magnus in this game on how to play the end game correctly. Hopefully helps you win more games as well in your own online games. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please smash that like button, comment down below. It does help support the channel, so if you can, please do that for me. And real fast, if you are tired of watching endless chess YouTube videos and not making any progress, I do have the solution. Go to drmikechess.com, links above and down below in the pinned comment. It's my new coaching program, DR Mike Chess Pro, where we literally guarantee you will gain 200 plus ELO in your first 90 days, 100% guaranteed. There's no one else in the entire industry offering a guarantee like this because we know how to get it done. So if you want to get coached directly by me and how to gain 200 plus ELO in 90 days or less guaranteed, head to drmikechess.com. Again, links right there and down below in the pinned comment and the description. I will see you there, and I'll see you inside.